This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 103. And tonight, I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hello.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey.
So, this past week was our second year anniversary of AggroChat. So that's kind of cool.
Hooray.
Woo!
Madness.
It is. It does feel a little bit like madness. The show's morphed quite a bit over that time. For the better.
What we're doing.
Yeah, like for the better or worse, we're not sure, but like it's morphed. But yeah, so that's a thing. Another thing this week is that apparently the gods of beta invites finally smiled upon me, and I'm now in at least a short-term Overwatch Beta weekend.
Which is now
How's that
over
going?
as we're speaking, right?
Oh, it is officially over? I thought it went tomorrow as well.
As far as I know, it was supposed to end Saturday night at 9 p.m.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay.
You missed your chance to play more?
You know, I played quite a bit this afternoon, so I am a huge fan of Torbjorn, the little dwarf guy that builds turrets and has a special attack that says Molten Core.
Oh dear. No comment.
He's amazing.
Of course it does.
He's amazing. But yeah, like I played quite a bit this morning, especially with Ammo and Saul and Ginda or Jinda. I don't know if he says Ginda or Jinda. But we mostly played against bots. I played some against humans, and that was a sad experience.
Oh, there is a bots game. That's good to
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no, like you could totally play. You can choose between easy, medium, and hard bots, and I didn't try hard bots, but medium is mostly okay, but every so often it gets super aggressive, and it will absolutely team kill your ass if you're not careful.
Can't be worse than that Rocket League game we played against the impossible bots.
But I really like the game. It lived up to all of my expectations.
I really want to like this game.
I got into the short-term weekend beta thing, and it lived up to my expectations, which were that it's not a game that's really for me.
Oh, that sucks.
I love their promo videos so much. That's the game I want to play. But it's not what the game actually is. And it's like, I haven't played it, but I've watched a bunch of people playing it. And like, maybe if I played it, it would be something different than what I already know about.
It's a really, really damn good shooter. Like, that's what it is, and it's unapologetic in what it does, but it's really good. Like, all of the classes I played felt really good. I mean, I say classes, but characters. And they all felt really unique. Like, they weren't like carbon copies of each other, and they were all kind of doing something different. The only negative I have to say about that is that you pretty much have to learn every single character. Like, it's a whole new thing. They don't all use exactly the same attack keys. Like for some characters, there's a significant switching back and forth between two modes. Other characters, like, movement is really important. But like Torbjorn, for example, if you hit left shift, which is the movement key for some characters, it's the key he drops your turret. So it's kind of an uneven experience in trying to transition between characters.
Yeah, I definitely had this problem. Like, I was trying out new characters, and the key that was the movement key for some of them was like basically ice block for the character I was playing. And
yeah, for May.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I was not expecting that.
Well, May has no
great.
movement ability at all.
Right. I mean, I enjoyed the character. I think, but you're right, the characters are all pretty unique, and I like that they feel unique, but I don't like that the key bindings for them do such different things that it makes it very hard. And there's this expectation that you will switch between characters even on the fly.
Yeah.
And so sort of having at least a feel for some of them is really useful and necessary. And the fact that it's kind of awkward to transition between them is frustrating.
I think
So,
it's
like,
definitely going to be a learning experience. What were you going to say, Ash?
Yes, I'm sort of used to that from like things like League Champions. Like Graves has a dash on his E, which he did. I've like Graves forever. But other champs may have their dashes, their Q, or whatever else.
Yeah, like
And this is sort of similar, right?
I can
Yeah.
I can sort of see that.
The problem with is like, okay, so in League, it is QWE. Like, regardless of your champion, they're going to be using QWE. This is not that case. Like, some of them don't use certain abilities. Like, so some of them may not have a Q.
Abilities, right?
What?
Some of them have passives instead of active abilities in some slots, right?
Right. So, like, this character may not have a Q. Or this character, the E may be super important, but the left shift isn't that important. So it feels weird. Like, I would say it's very much in the League model to where if you were going to play Pharah, for example, you're going to have to learn how to play Pharah. You can't really carry much over from like Soldier 76 to Pharah, even though they're both someone with a gun type characters. But they play vastly different, and like Pharah is all about maintaining amount of time you can spend in the air.
I mean, so stepping back from the nitty gritty, like, sell me on this. It's just TF2, right?
It is a much better TF2. Like, so I had this whole discussion that I wanted to have about another game that's having a beta this weekend is Doom. And what
Battleborn
Doom...
is also having a beta this weekend.
What?
Battleborn is also having a beta this weekend.
Yeah, like, I could care less about Battleborn, but anyway. Battleborn lost me on the first time I played the game. But, like, Doom is trying to be a really fast-paced shooter. Overwatch is trying to be a really fast-paced shooter that feels really clean, and they've gone to all these lengths to make it feel smooth in the hit prediction and all of these things to where it feels good to play. But Doom is chasing Quake 3 Arena. Like, it's trying to be the recreation of Quake 3 Arena, and it absolutely achieves that. So it feels just like playing
Arena is still a fun game compared to
no,
the other
it's
games
not.
you have out.
It is not a fun game, and that's my problem with Doom. Is like, it is not a fun game anymore. Like, I don't crave Rocket Arena style gameplay. That was fun for the time because that's all we had, but it's just not fun. Whereas Overwatch feels very much like a modern match-based shooter. And it
is great until you try and play the thing and
right.
realize that, oh wait.
Sometimes nostalgia is great, like, but in the case of this is a modern incarnation of this old concept, it just didn't work for Doom. But Overwatch is trying to be a similarly fast-paced run-and-gun shooter, but it does it so much better because it brings in all kind of, strategic elements in the way the maps are designed, because the maps are really well designed. And the thing that I find interesting is the maps have hard choke points, like absolute true hard choke points. A lot of times in an FPS map, there will be a sewer tunnel or something else that you can go around. There are a couple places in the maps, in certain game modes, that, no, there's an absolute hard choke point at this gate. You have to figure out a way to get through it. And that's where the hero switching comes in, where there are certain champions that are really good at defeating those obstacles, so you can break that bottleneck.
That, I just heard you say, this has some awful level design that makes losing teams lose even harder.
No, not exactly. Like, yes, sort of, but the whole idea is that you're supposed to switch champions to whatever the map needs at that moment.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what you just told me, was I never want to play this on the internet. Like, that sounds awful. What?
Like, if you are a person who really likes to master something, that's a real turnoff.
Yeah, this is not the
This-
game for that person.
If you're
I mean,
playing,
this is-
if you're a player who likes even matches, like that sounds like a situation. Unless there's some other dimension that I'm not hearing. That sounds like, oh hey, the team that's slightly better is controlling this checkpoint, and now the other team is just scrambling to stay afloat.
Well, no,
and-
not exactly. Like, so there are a lot of ways to break that bottleneck. Like, all I would have had to have done is switch over to a tank and walked through. And there would have been nothing that they could have done to prevent me from walking a group of people through the checkpoint. We just didn't happen to have a tank at that moment, so I switched over to Siegfried because he has this big forward shield that blocks all incoming attacks.
So, okay, what it's sounding like is balanced parties are more important.
Balanced parties are extremely important. So, like, this morning we were running around with a fairly balanced party, and it was really fun. Solo queuing, yeah, that was not a thing that was ever a balanced party.
Yeah, this sounds very much like something that I would never want to play with random people. Because
Yeah, like, so...
Team Fortress 2 has shown us how much random people are willing to change what class they're playing because it's better for the team.
Right. So, like, when I was trying to solo queue just for the hell of it, I was always that person that switched to the appropriate class that was missing so that we could break whatever log jam happened to be happening. But when I was running around with Solaria and Ammo and Ginda, like, I was playing Torbjorn, Ammo was playing Lucario, which is this really awesome healer, and Saul was playing Soldier 76 and
something other than Lucario.
yeah, there's lots of other healers.
No, not what I meant. Isn't that not his name?
Oh, really? I have no idea. I thought it was Lucario. Maybe? I don't know. I don't remember his name.
Guy, right?
The
Lucio.
Yeah, Lucio. Whatever.
One of them is a Pokemon.
One of them's a Pokemon, basically.
Okay. Well, he's a Pokemon.
He looks not really anything like Lucario.
But he was like a really awesome character because like he was a really good healer, but also provided a speed buff. And I think that was what I like so much about like Torbjorn is I've got my turret, I've got a decent shotgun type attack, and I can also take the remains of like anytime I kill someone, scraps dropped, which I could either use to repair my turret or drop armor packs, which wasn't like giving extra health, but it was damage mitigation. So I could constantly be buffing my team to where we were able to get through bad firefights a little bit smoother.
So what were you playing against?
This morning was just bots. Like, it was a balanced bot team.
Okay. Is there enough like bots play for that to be fun?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun this morning. I mean, like, we were only playing on medium, and there was one match we absolutely lost.
Because like
I don't
think-
really feel like playing against bots would be fun in the long term. Like, I had fun doing it this weekend because I was still learning the game, and I sure as heck wasn't going to spend a lot of time getting murdered by strangers. But I think if I played the game for more than a week or so, I would get sick of playing against bots pretty quick.
I don't know. I played a lot of League of Legends against bots, and it hasn't gotten like super old.
Well, we did eventually stop doing it, but
It's true.
Well,
but
so,
I'm
like-
it took a while.
I'm also thinking about like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, which was entirely against bots and is like not something I would play dedicatedly, but would be fun to hop in and do every so often.
Well, honestly, like, if you're on your game, you're probably going to win against medium bots. But if you screw up and if you do something stupid, they will get super aggressive and take the objectives. I want to see how the hard bots are. I imagine they probably just cheat. That seems to be the way that all bots on hard mode work.
It seems to be the kind of recurring thing with this sort of game is that bots aren't quite interesting enough, and playing against players is miserable. Like playing against random players you don't know is misery.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I would.
And like
I
that's
would.
kind of what keeps me away from being like it's a big part of why I'm not excited about this game.
I had a lot of fun playing with people I knew, though, and that aspect would probably keep me coming back regardless of what I was doing. Like, had I
For or against.
playing with. So, like, on the same team as people I knew. We had 4 of us running around, and there's 6 total on a team. I I had to go for a while, and then when I came back this evening, I never actually got connected with the people that were playing. So I tried some random queues, and the weekly mode was actually pretty fun. I don't know what the difference is between the weekly mode versus the normal random challenger mode. And it could be like when Destiny does a specific PvP mode, all the people that you would ever care to be playing with are playing the special mode, and only the dregs of society are left playing the other mode. So that might have been what was happening when like everybody that was enjoyable to play with was in Rumble. Because like that experience wasn't bad. Like I had fun playing with people, and they're trying to do a balanced team. And those were total random strangers. But in the quick match, yeah, it was madness. But like if all you want to do is get in and like gain levels, which unlock loot boxes, which give you stuff, you can totally never not play bots.
So
I just don't want to be frustrated at my experience on a constant basis.
I also feel like the other thing to talk about, which I think is a thing that's just frustrating you a bit, Tam, is the promotional material, which is sort of showing this game that could have been.
Yeah, like the promotional material sets up this really cool, interesting looking world with interesting looking characters that I would love to run around and explore. And I know that the game isn't giving me that. And like, it's like the worst tease ever.
Well, and that's honestly what makes
talk a lot.
That's what makes the maps really good.
Annoying. Like I don't know. I'm gonna probably make myself super unpopular here, but like I was excited when I saw some of these characters unveiled. I was excited when I like saw some of the promotional stuff. And then I started playing the game, and like every single character I thought I might like just annoyed the ever-living hell out of me. Like I just wanted them all to just shut up and go away.
Well, it's like they're trying to deliver on this concept, this world concept that they can only deliver through character one-liners. Like that's not a great. I don't want to experience their world through one-liners.
So, there's a lot of weird little interactions between the characters when you're sitting around. Like, there's a moment before the match starts, and you're kind of just sitting in like an entry tunnel before the door opens. And there's been several times that the different combinations of characters would talk back and forth and do kind of the Dragon Age thing and have conversations. But I totally get the whole tease aspect of the world. Like, it's a really cool world. Like, when you're roaming around the maps, there's all these little hidden gems that flesh out this world, like posters on the wall and, you know, books on the table. And
I feel like the comparison is going to be League. And League lore is interesting, but I think it's very well designed for the game of League, because it's like, this is a whole bunch of interesting concepts that haven't really been fleshed out, and kind of intentionally so, whereas with Overwatch, it feels like they've fleshed out all of the concepts and we're just never going to see it play out.
Well, and they may like talk about some of the stuff through gameplay modes eventually, like special events and stuff like that, but it's never going to be more than hinted at.
It's like getting a brochure instead of a novel.
But ultimately, if you don't want to play a really good shooter, like if that's not the game you're wanting, then it's probably not the game for you, because like it's a really good match-based shooter.
Yeah, it's like I think that could be fun, but
what I would really like to play is the solo or group-based PvE shooter in that world where I can take the time to explore things.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if this were analogous to Borderlands, I would already have pre-purchased the collector's edition. Like, and I would be like sitting down with Ash and Kodra and everybody else who's interested to be like, when are we playing this together? But like,
or even if we could play a game like Division, but in this world with these characters.
That's really more what I was thinking.
That's what I was thinking as well. Like, actually get to explore the world that these characters exist in, and you know, because I've yet to hear anything about this game that makes me think, you know, that why would I play this instead of Team Fortress 2? And I don't even really want to play Team Fortress 2. So,
I've played a lot of Team Fortress 2 over the years, and this is a better game than Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, like if I played a ton of Team Fortress,
I'm sure that's fighting words to some people, but it's a better game. Like it's a better Team Fortress 2.
Have hats.
Yes, sort of. There are cosmetic things that you unlock. So every level you get a loot crate, and the loot crate has 4 items in it, and they could be taunts that your character says, they could be skins, they could be poses, like in the victory stance. And no hats, but there's like graffiti sprays that you can use out in the world. Well, not that there's a world, but while you're in the match, you can, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would be doing this, but you can put graffiti sprays up.
Because Team Fortress 2 has it.
Yep.
Probably. But yeah, so there's like 50, 60 items per character that you unlock or can unlock through these loot crates. So yeah, there's hats, basically. And I'm sure that's only the tip of the iceberg. Like, they'll probably have customized weapons and things like that eventually, too. The problem that I have with the game is, like, it's going to fall into the same category that Heroes of the Storm?
Yes, that is the MOBA.
All I could think of is Heroes of Balls, so...
Right, but, I mean, like, it's a game that's fun if I have people to play it with. And it's really fun, like, when I'm playing it, but I can also easily walk away and not play it for a couple months and be just fine.
Yeah, this is kind of a like, do I want to spend $60 or whatever to have a really fun weekend with everybody else who decided to spend $60 for a really fun
I think it's actually $40.
Yeah. But that's the difference.
But,
that's the big difference between it and Heroes of the Storm, right? Like, I could hop in and play Heroes of the Storm for a couple of hours and wander away without laying out any money, but I'm just like, after playing a little bit this weekend, like, I'm just not gonna lay out any money for Overwatch. It is, it might be something that I would play with friends once in a while, but not if I actually have to buy it first. It's not worth it to me.
I'm absolutely really picking it up, but
I want to know how this game does on consoles.
Yeah, I never got around to playing it with a controller. I'm sure it's going to do well on consoles. The aspect that
kind of got left behind when the console versions didn't keep up with the patches for the PC version.
Yeah. Well, and that's always going to be the problem, is like, traditionally the console version will always lag behind the PC patch. I mean, that's what happens with Warframe.
Yeah, but at least the Warframe catches up. Team Fortress 2, they decided it wasn't going to catch up. There was no way they could even make the changes they made to the PC version to the console version.
Well, it pretty much died when they went to the whole Man Company thing, didn't they?
It died before then, because it didn't get most of the class updates.
Okay. I mean, I think this game's going to be wildly popular. It's really good at what it does, but I think it's also going to not be the game that a lot of people were necessarily wanting.
I suspect the next game that gives me Mass Effect 3 multiplayer will be Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer.
Probably.
Right? Though we never played Inquisition multiplayer, and I bet it would be super fun.
True, we didn't. Also barely played Inquisition.
So, the next topic on the docket is the Wildstar cross-faction changes.
So, Grace, tell me, can I play Chua in the Exiles yet?
No. The end. This is like Grace gets super cranky time. Like, they had this big Dev Connect thing, and they solicited feedback from the community about, opening up potentially the faction walls. And in the end, it was pretty much a non-event. Like, I was really shocked at how little they're changing. So basically, the only thing that is changing is that if you sign up for a random queue, you may be randomly thrown into a group with people of the opposite faction, and you will be able to talk to them.
That is terrible.
That is shockingly garbage.
Yeah. And it's garbage for 2 reasons. Because if you liked the faction wall and you like it for RP reasons or immersion or whatever you want to call it, it's absolute garbage because you have no control over it. If you want a random queue, you are stuck with being put in a group with anyone of any faction. And it's garbage for someone like me who just like wants to play with my friends and then doesn't care what faction they're on, and I would just like to be able to hang out and do stuff together, and you can't. You know, the way that it's set up, there is no open world grouping. There's no, grouping in social spaces. There's no visiting other people's houses. And so like, even though I can sign up for a random queue and get random strangers of the opposite faction, I can't say, hey Ash, you want to play a Chua and I want to play a Mordash and let's sign up for a dungeon together. Like, nope, can't do that. So I don't know, it feels like that they had a problem, and it was that dungeon queues were too
Now
long,
they have two
and
problems.
and they fixed it this way, but it doesn't.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound like the faction was really what they were thinking about here.
Yeah, that's the sense that I get it. It's frustrating. Like they got all this feedback, and I mean, maybe I don't know. I didn't read that whole thread, so maybe they looked at the feedback and said, well, this is the thing that would be the best for everybody. But it feels like they solicited this feedback and then said, okay, this is the thing that will fix this problem that we have anyway, and didn't take any sort of risks.
Well, and it honestly makes me wonder if, like, they were going to do this anyway, and the charade of accepting feedback was just their way of softening the blow and getting people ready for the potentiality of ending up with the other faction in their dungeons.
I mean, it sort of has a whiff of that for sure. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be softening people up and eventually breaking down the faction wall a little bit more, but it was like they're like, okay, we have two big changes. We have letting people group together, random dungeons with strangers of the opposite faction, and you will be able to talk to people of the opposite faction. Well, you can do that already with mods. Like, that's if people who RP or just were interested in that already are doing that. So that's sort of like not even a change.
I just found the whole thing frustrating because, I mean, I don't know. Why really go this far if you're not going to go all the way?
It sounds tailor-made to annoy the most number of people.
Right? Like, it just seems like it annoys everybody unnecessarily.
I mean, and there's been plenty of complaining, especially from the the pro-faction wall crowd.
And maybe that's the thing, maybe there are just a lot more people who are way into the faction wall than I would have ever thought. I don't know. Or maybe they were louder on that thread. But it seems like it's so terrible for a game that has a low population, that has been obviously struggling and is a great game and deserves, more attention, to just continue to prevent people from being able to play and play together.
I feel like the best comment I've ever heard from in game design, like working in game design, was at one point I had a lead whose like first question for any change for anything was, can I play with my friends? Does this make it harder or easier for me to play with my friends? And it didn't matter how cool the idea was. If it made it harder to play with my friends, it wasn't a cool idea. And like, I keep seeing it over and over again.
Well, and this thing just frustrates me because now I can see people of the other faction and I can play with them, but I don't have any control over it in any way. Like I can randomly be stuck with strangers of the opposite faction, but I can't choose to play with my friends of the opposite faction, and that feels really frustrating. But anyway, I mean, I don't want to belabor this for too long. I still love the game, and I still think it deserves better than it's gotten, but man, this is such a frustrating change, and I had to vent about it a little bit.
And I'm hoping that eventually they'll revisit this, and maybe they already had this in the works, so they went this far, and they'll maybe, well, if they can do it, like, I feel like the maybes, God, I don't want to be negative, but like I keep feeling like these maybes have a limited lifespan of amount of times they can make changes. like big sweeping changes. Like there's going to become a time where they just don't have the resources to do that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm pretty nervous about that too. Now, right now, they've opened up their next Dev Connect, and that is for the class and race combos, so potentially opening up more of those, which again, I'm in favor of just opening everything up. I don't really see a huge reason not to do that.
I don't know why that's even a discussion.
Right, and I think that it's more likely
reason they
to
gave
go
it
through.
launch was animations.
Right, so I'm nervous about it because it could potentially take some resources that they might not have. But I also think that it's something that they could pretty straightforwardly monetize, and that makes me think that it may have a little bit more hope of going through. And I would happily pay to be able to, race change, one of my existing characters to something else that I enjoy more. So we'll see.
Well, and we talked about that in over the week. The fact that their monetization seems to be all over the place right now. Like some things seem really like worthwhile and it's reasonable, and then others seem super expensive.
Yeah, and and it's going to be tricky for them to make many changes in that. I mean, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, I think, at this point, because if they lower the prices, then they need a lot more volume. But right now, I think people are still really skeptical about the longevity of the game, unfortunately, after all the layoffs and problems that they've had. And so people are a bit gun shy about, pulling the trigger on any major purchases. So the things that they have are often seem a bit more expensive than most people will be willing to spend, because I guess they have to make, some money somehow. And if only a few people are going to buy, then they need to make as much as they can off of those few purchases.
Yeah, I'm thinking mostly that Corgi speeder seemed really expensive.
Yeah, and in general, I think the cost of the account-bound items, account-bound pets and mounts feel a bit high for me. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's things that Blizzard has in their store that just mystify me, and I see people using them all the time. I mean, the stupid cosmetic helmets were like ridiculously expensive, and I still see people using those in WoW. So, and Wildstar, there's also a ton of things that are I think really priced fine. I have bought a ton of dyes and outfits and things, and those things are account wide by default, and they're pretty reasonably priced. So it just feels odd that the mounts and pets are not default account wide and are so much more expensive.
Right. Okay. So we'll put that topic to bed. Reboots. This week we got to experience what a good reboot actually feels like.
Ratchet and Clank came out this past Tuesday in a game based on the movie that they're making based on the first game.
Which is contorted.
It's not above making fun of this level of meta nonsense.
Okay, I was going to say, I totally followed that really easily. Wait.
The fourth wall is a thing that sometimes gets broken.
So, wait, say this again.
We're making a Ratchet and Clank movie based on the first Ratchet and Clank game.
So this is based on that movie?
They made this game based on that movie.
With an awareness that...
a reboot of the Ratchet and Clank series.
Yeah, but there's an awareness that the other games happened. And that's what makes it amazing.
So as somebody who's never played these, what's Ratchet and Clank like?
They are action platformers with a heavy emphasis on shooting things.
They're some of my favorite games of all time. They have a great sense of humor.
And they have like really inventive weapons.
Ratchet and Clank basically is one of a very small number of series, Uncharted being another one, that kept the PlayStation 3 afloat during the bad years.
And it's honestly, like, the fact that this game exists and the fact that you guys have played it and obviously it's as good as I hoped it would be is almost enough to make me want to go out and buy a PS4. Like, I haven't bought a new console in forever and I can't afford one, but man, I really want to play Ratchet and Clank.
I'm actually kind of tempted to like buy it and play it and use my PS4 for something other than watching Archer and Bloodborne.
It's really good. Like, basically, it's everything I would hope it would be, where you pick up the controller and you go into this world and it feels like you remember it feeling. It's just a hell of a lot prettier.
It's a lot prettier. It's... me try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. It does diverge from the plot of the original game. So while it feels familiar, it's not the same.
Which I think is good. Like, if it was identical, that would not necessarily be fun.
So, where this game is really interesting, and I mean, this is a minor spoiler, so, but it's minor in the aspect of you learn this a few seconds into the game. It's where this entire game is being told from an unreliable narrator. The adventures are being told by Captain Quark.
I love unreliable narrators so much.
So also does not pretend, to the player at least, that Captain Quark for a minute is remotely legit.
Like, the entire setup tells you, no, it didn't really happen quite like this, because he's going to highlight his exploits a little bit more than really, but that's what makes it so great. It's like, it's, okay, yeah, I'm sold now. This is a reboot, but not really a reboot.
I really, really like reboots that diverge significantly from the source.
This is definitely one of those.
Because I think that they're interesting. Like, we can do the same thing. Like, I'm really hoping, on the topic of reboots, that the Final Fantasy VII reboot diverges significantly from the original story.
I don't think anybody remembers what that cloud is like, so it probably will diverge significantly from the original story.
But man, people are going to be mad. Like, I will probably enjoy that, but people will be mad if it's different.
I want them to be mad. I want people to rage. I'm like, the more people rage about, like, if I weren't already going to buy it day one, spoilers, I'm buying Final Fantasy VII Reboot on day one because I'm a giant FF7 junkie. But if I weren't already going to do that, the more mad people got about it, the more likely I would be to buy it.
It's definitely interesting because it's sort of, in weird ways, the second reboot of the Ratchet and Clank series. I
was going to ask about that.
The first PS3 game, Tools of Destruction, decided to pretty much toss out everything about the previous games, except that Ratchet and Clank were in it. It introduced all new NPCs, all new villains, and it was sort of okay. Then they made A Crack in Time, which was amazing in that same universe. And this one is sort of back to the originals, sort of.
To me, it feels more like the originals than it does the PS3 games, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm relatively certain I'm near the end of the game. It seems to be a little shorter than the first game was, but also it has a lot less filler than the first game had.
I'm totally okay with this.
There are a few worlds they cut out entirely, but these worlds were kind of pointless. So I don't really feel like this is an improvement. It'll be interesting to see. Well, I know this is selling better than anybody expected it to because it's sold out nearly everywhere around here. Amazon too also has it sold out for a little while. So I kind of hope they can make more of these.
I'm down with it because, like, I've always felt like Ratchet and Clank just has the right mix of elements. It's just a fun experience. Like, you pick it up, you play it. If you really care about finding secrets, there's secrets and things to unlock. But it's just a fun ride, and I always look forward to another one.
I have to say that there's, a couple of video game movies coming out soon, and I really hope that the Ratchet and Clank movie is the best one. I feel like it has the potential to be the best one.
Like, what competition are we talking about here? Because the only other one I know of is almost certainly not going to be as good as Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Which one are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Dances with Orcs.
I do not think that will be particularly great.
I'm pretty sure it's not going to be better than Ratchet and Clank.
Right.
It'll be better than the Doom movie.
That's a low bar.
I mean, it's possible that the Ratchet and Clank movie will be bad. I don't know, but like I've seen the trailer, it looked good, and I've seen the Warcraft trailer, and it looked like
Terrible.
the Warcraft trailer.
They do
but I'm
use
pretty
movie
tired of
scenes
orcs.
in the game as cutscenes.
That's kind of cool.
Works pretty well, and
That's pretty hilarious.
it is actually kind of funny.
I really want, and this is never going to happen, it makes me really sad, but I really want, like, cool collaborative... I would just say, like, the Ratchet and Clank team make a Zootopia movie. or similar. Like, get like, some really hardcore, like, Pixar or DreamWorks or one of the big studios to, like, come up with your story and then have a game developed that wasn't just a cash-in and see what happened. Because the couple of times where people have actually done that, it's been amazing. It just never happens.
The only movie tie-in I can think of that isn't awful right now is Spider-Man 2.
Riddick. Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah.
Video game movie that was legit. Video game based on a movie. It was legit awesome.
I think Phelan would argue for Tron 2.0.
I mean, I would say that Tron 2.0 is, it is a legitimately good movie-based game. It's better than the movie that it's based on. I love Tron, but I won't argue that it's a good movie.
I also feel like I'm the only person who likes Tron Legacy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the soundtrack a lot.
Tron's not a good movie either.
I like the soundtrack of Tron Legacy a lot.
It's an amazing soundtrack.
I've listened to the soundtrack well before I actually saw the movie.
Yeah, I was listening to that on a daily basis before I saw Tron Legacy. So maybe the soundtrack colored my opinion of the movie?
Might be.
Well, and if we're getting into that, where, a new story in the setting of an existing movie, there are a lot of really good Star Wars games.
Yes, that's true. There's a lot of really bad Star Wars games. There's also a lot of really good Star Wars games.
But when you have that many Star Wars games.
Yeah.
I'm actually, now I'm curious, is the ratio of good Star Wars games to bad Star Wars games better or worse than the ratio of good Star Wars movies to bad Star Wars movies?
I feel like we could have a whole podcast episode about this.
That is an interesting question.
I've played enough of the Star Wars games to know.
Okay, so...
Just really like Jedi Academy.
So are we giving the Star Wars movies, 50%?
We might have to make this into its own podcast, because I guess it could go.
Because we do have to remind you that the Christmas special exists.
Oh.
Well,
I don't think that is a movie.
Look,
right.
Look,
now,
there are two...
The Ewok movies also exist.
There are two Ewok Adventures movies.
And I loved them because I was a little girl when those came out, but I'm afraid to watch them now.
Yeah, I loved them as a kid because it was more Star Wars.
It'll only make you sad.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
I totally had an Ewok teddy bear.
So how many of Ewok movies were there?
2.
I don't think...
It might be at less than 50% on the movies.
It might be a bit less than 50%.
Look, I'm gonna be totally honest. We're only slightly above 50% on the movies, even without even just the main ones.
Yes, that's fair. Yes,
but if we factor in like the cartoons, it'll skew the curve up a little bit too. I mean, even though you have to make up for the Droids cartoon.
I was going to say, there was a Droids cartoon and an Ewoks cartoon, so those cancel out Rebels and Clone Wars.
Okay, fine.
And in fact, I think that puts us at a total negative, because there was that initial Clone Wars travesty, so yeah.
So...
Wait, you didn't like the original short Clone Wars series?
To be fair, I was going to cut the TV shows and stuff out as a wash in the same way that I was going to cut out all of the Star Wars edutainment games out.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about the Tartakovsky minisodes. Those were excellent.
Okay, thank God. I was like,
I'm talking about the thing right after those with the horrible hut.
Oh, that.
Yes, that.
I had forgotten about that. I wish I had still forgotten about that.
That. Yeah, the Tartakovsky Clone Wars was
definitely
amazing.
spring off into its own podcast.
It really could.
Yeah, I was just saying, Thalen, had you bagged on the original minisodes, I might have had to disown you.
I will never say a bad thing about anything created by Gendy Tartakovsky.
Those things are amazing.
I want to do some research for next podcast. What we talked about. Actually, maybe not next podcast. Either way.
Okay. So, Kodra, you've been delving more into the world of Dark Souls.
I have. So, I am trying to beat Dark Souls 1 before I get and play Dark Souls 3. I'm not sure how that's going for me right now. Like, Ash put a challenge in front of me, and it's one I'm probably going to ultimately fail.
I don't recall making that a challenge.
You just said, oh, you could get this item. Oh, wait, no, you wouldn't, because that's the hard mode of that boss.
Oh. Is that why you have to get the Dragon Slayer Spear now?
Well, the Dragon Slayer Spear is a very good weapon for this build, right? Like, I have 40 dex at this point, so I've been going all in on dexterity with this character. And one of the better weapons is the Dragon Slayer Spear for that type of a build. That said, I've gotten to the point where a couple of the bosses I've encountered, I actually managed to one-shot a boss, which felt like shocking to me, but I think I've sort of gotten into a mode with this game where with a lot of bosses, it is triggering a lot of the same receptors in my brain that I get when I am grinding my face against a raid boss in an MMO. Because there's a really hard boss that I should not be able to beat, but because I am operating at a very high level, I am slowly learning all of the ins and outs of that boss so that I can get to the optimal level that I can finally beat it. Like, I am learning, oh, this minute animation means this attack is coming and I need to get out of the way. And I need to get out of the way in this specific method.
So you describe that to be like MMO bosses? What comes to mind for me is Mega Man bosses.
Right? Yeah, I was thinking that too.
That's fair, yeah. See, I don't get that as much with Mega Man bosses, but I always use the, like, optimal kill path in Mega Man. So I find once I have killed that first boss, the others fall over pretty easily until I get to the last boss, at which I typically die a whole bunch.
You should play a Mega Man game that you're not familiar with without knowing the optimal path.
That's probably fair.
Because I find it way more fun. I don't often get as far, but I find it way more fun.
Yeah, and I really like just fighting a boss and like, oh, learning something. I learned something new. I died, and I will get back up, and I will try and apply this knowledge. And as a result, I am able to remain calm, which is apparently something that I was having a lot of trouble with when I was first getting into Bloodborne with Tam. And I got back into it, and I almost killed the boss that I was stuck at just in the first go, just because I was able to calmly assess the situation and make informed decisions. And I tried out a tactic, and it failed, and it's like, oh, well, I'll go back and try it again. There's a mindset you have to get into for these games, though.
Now that you're beyond where you were before, I feel like I can actually tell you my experience watching you play Bloodborne, which is that it's like I started to get up and walk around because it was what I needed to do to not like shout at you. Because like, and I think it's really interesting. Like the Soul series, and Bloodborne is a big departure from the Souls series because it rewards a different style of play, and that doesn't sound like it's necessarily a big departure, except that style of play is like what those games are super predicated on. And so like there's this interesting thing with like Dark Souls where being careful, taking it slow, being thoughtful, and acting very precisely and at the right moments and at no other time. Like, don't overextend. Don't let your guard down. Stay vigilant. Be careful. That's sort of like the core philosophy throughout those games. And you can kind of edit that in different ways, but like by and large, that's kind of what they were going for. And there was a big to-do about Bloodborne because Bloodborne is not that. Bloodborne is about being relentless. Don't let up. Keep going. Don't stop. Take risks. Move forward. And it's very interesting because Bloodborne totally punishes you for hesitation or for being reticent or holding back, except when it's a good idea to do so. And it's
because those games are on fairly similar engines, how much of this is just the dramatically different equipment options?
A lot of it is in the dramatically different equipment options.
In Bloodborne, shields are crap, and offhand pistols are a thing.
I was about to say, you don't really have shields in Bloodborne.
And armor is also not really a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas a lot of the weapons feel fairly similar in Demon Souls, like a lot of the offensive weapons.
Bloodborne has crazy off-the-wall weapons.
Exactly. They're radically different. So part of it is the equipment, and part of it is the mechanics. Because like both are resource management games. But Dark Souls is more of a defensive resource management. Like blocking with your shield consumes stamina, so you need to be careful about your stamina consumption and know when to drop your guard to get stamina back and when to dodge so that you're not losing stamina from getting hit and so on. Bloodborne's answer to this is Street Fighter-esque health bar movement. So it shows you where your health will be in a second or two, but if you can hit an enemy and if you can deal damage before your health diminishes, your health won't diminish as much. To the point where if you're really good, you can take a hit and regenerate all of your health before you actually lose it, provided that's not the blow that would have killed you. And so it taking a hit in Dark Souls, you kind of dodge back, regenerate your stamina, hide behind your shield a little bit, get control of the situation again. Bloodborne is more, you take a hit, you get back in there fast, commit. And so anyway, my experience watching Kodra play previously, before he played a whole bunch of Dark Souls, was he'd take a hit and then like retreat, and then enemies would press the advantage and kill him. And so anything big was inordinately scary because it would exploit the fact that he was giving it ground. Whereas I would die, but I would usually go down fighting, even going on offensives that weren't necessarily going to get me out of it scot-free. And it was one of those like, don't avoid fights, get in there and fight. Whatever, if you die, you'll have learned something. And the departure from that mentality, from the previous mentality to that mentality, after playing a bunch of Dark Souls, was like immediately readily apparent.
Well, and I'm still not 100% sold. I'm not as aggressive as you, and I don't necessarily think that's always the best answer because...
It's not. I don't think it is. I just think that on the whole, the game rewards you being aggressive and not defensive.
It rewards you being more aggressive, but more than anything, it rewards you having the right timing. You need to know both.
Yeah.
And it's going to... I think it's more balanced. Whereas I think Dark Souls is more willing to forgive you for being too defensive. I think Bloodborne is, you need to be defensive at the right time and you need to be offensive at the right time. And if you aren't, we're going to punish you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a place, I think that there's like a place where you could be like abandon defense and be all offense. That's not where Bloodborne is, but I really enjoy Bloodborne more than I've liked any of the Souls games, because I get very bored very quickly of being hyper vigilant and just play super defensively all the time because there's no downside. I definitely like Bloodborne a lot better than I've liked any of the Souls games I've played.
I don't know, like, I keep going back and forth on the Souls games. Like, I'm not sure if I would like them or not, because one of the things that frustrates me the most in a game is when you have to learn things, but there's a large period of time that has to pass between the moment that you get to try the new thing that you're supposed to variate on So like if I can rapidly fail and then pick back up pretty close to where I left off and try something new, I'm okay. Like that's fine. I can beat my head against a wall so long as the amount of time between the death and when I can try something new is pretty short.
I really like that about Bloodborne, at least. I can't speak for the other Souls games, but it blends this sort of neat... It's that thing that you're describing is the reward for exploring. It lets you open up new passages. Like, for example, in Bloodborne, we had a boss that could take a while for us to get to, but we found a shortcut path and opened it up, and it was basically right next to our spawn point. And so suddenly that boss became way more accessible, and we could take shots against that boss and practice and learn without either accumulating enough resources that losing to the boss was necessarily super costly, or having to run forever to get to the boss.
So Dark Souls does that too. Like, if you will find shortcuts that allow you to get around the map much quicker. And those are like sort of rewards you get for getting to certain areas. That said, there's still a like little bit of running from like your spawn points, your bonfires or your lanterns, to sort of where you need to go next.
Okay, so I guess the example of what frustrates me I can give from Destiny. There's a mission called Lost to Light. It's what awards the Black Spindle exotic sniper. In order to get the Black Spindle exotic sniper, you have to get all the way through this mission, and then towards the end of the mission, instead of completing it like normally, you have to go down a side path that leads to a ship, and then when you hit the ship, you have 10 minutes to clear from the front of the ship to the back of the ship and kill everything, including the boss, in order to get the Black Spindle. And what kills me about this is if I could just try the ship over and over and over, I would be okay. But having to, every single time I fail, go back to orbit and back down and go through all the bullshit normal stuff just to get to the part that I'm struggling with.
I don't feel like that's a thing. I feel like every time we've run into something like that in Bloodborne, it's been because we haven't found the shortcut. And as soon
That's
as
how I feel about Dark Souls. First one.
So how long do the boss fights normally last in Dark Souls?
The boss fights are actually not that long. Like
one way or another, it's probably going to be over pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
So is it a situation where they go fast if you're doing the right thing? Or
they go fast if you're not doing the right thing too.
That's true.
Yeah, you just straight up die.
So my best example for this is a guy called Capra Demon. And you walk in, it's a big old demon. He has 2 dogs. You kill the 2 dogs.
Tiny.
What?
His room is tiny.
His room is very tiny. You kill his 2 dogs, and suddenly it's just a very large enemy that you can, for the most part, block his attacks and then go in afterwards and kill him. What's going to kill you are the 2 dogs. And so you're going to die
by a
very
dog.
fast.
Oop, the demon murdered me.
What?
Oop, I got staggered by a dog. Oop, I got staggered by the other dog. Oop, the demon killed me.
Yes. And
that sequence of events is real fast.
Yes. So that's definitely a thing. Like, the bosses actually, once you level up, like, as you're leveling up your weapon, the bosses don't feel like they take too long, and the difficulty curve of the boss is typically high at the front and then gets easier. Like, there's not really, I'm entering my final mode, I'm gonna enrage and just kill you now. It's, if you can get like past the first hump and you can learn this boss, you will be able to rinse, repeat, and kill it. And the one exception is the one I'm currently on right now, where it's very hard at the beginning because there's 2 bosses, but when one of them dies, the other one becomes supercharged. And so it's a 2-phase fight. And I think it's the only 2-phase fight in this game that I've encountered so far. The other nice thing is none of these bosses are going to be, while the bosses are definitely a thing that people take note of, all of the enemies are also legitimately interesting fights. And, like, eventually you get to the point where they are legitimately interesting fights that you have their patterns down rote. But it's if you can't just, like, oh, I'm gonna run my face into these guys and mash my button, because they will still kill you.
All I have really played of the series is a little bit of Demon Souls.
I like Dark Souls a lot better than Demon Souls, but I should give Demon Souls another chance.
I like Demon Souls a lot because it offers a much wider variety of effective playstyles.
Wait, really?
It at least purports to. In that you can do interesting wizard stuff. You can blend playstyles better in Demon Souls, let's say.
I was about to say, you can do interesting wizard and cleric and all of that stuff in Dark Souls.
My experience with Dark Souls is get behind a big shield. Sit behind that big shield for the entirety of the game.
I think Dark Souls supports the wizard playstyle a lot better than Demon Souls did.
I don't know. I never actually got to any wizard stuff in Dark Souls because it required a shield to get far enough to get to any of that. And at that point it was like, why bother?
But Tam, why would you not want a shield? Shields are amazing.
You can't move quickly with a shield.
Why would you want to move quickly?
You can absolutely move quickly with a shield.
I guess you can get a little shitty buckler.
Well, no, you just...
I hate those things.
You can... If all you need is a shield, you can not wear armor. And then you can move as fast as possible as long as you are under a quarter of your weight limit. That's another interesting thing about the game for me is, so you have your max carry weight limit, which all of your armor and equipped weapons contributes to. If you are over half of that weight limit, you are in heavy load. I don't think this game is playable in heavy load. Somebody can disagree with me if they want. It is. Is it?
Yes.
Do you just never press the roll button?
You just don't press the roll button. You pretend that button doesn't exist, though. Yes.
Okay. That button seems very important to me.
It isn't important. Hope you have a shield that has 100% physical block and a whole lot of stamina.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't necessarily have that. Okay. Anyways, there are clearly more playstyles.
When you
I like to
try to roll, you clank a little bit and you have a bad time.
Yeah, if you're in heavy armor and you try and roll, you, like, get halfway through your roll and then you, like, end up on your back and then you have to push yourself up off of your back. This moment when you are on your back is what monsters like to call feeding time.
That's kind of hilarious.
Absolutely turtling.
If you're in medium armor, you can at least complete the roll, which is under half of your weight capacity. And most of my game has been trying to be as close to half of my weight capacity as possible. And I'm currently at 45 pounds of 90 pounds I can carry. And if you are at a quarter of your weight, then you are lightly encumbered and you can move much faster and roll much further.
You also get more invincibility frames on your roll.
Yes, which is extremely important. But the other thing I've been doing in this game is, like, I have been trying to make sure I am as durable as possible while still being in medium armor. And for a while, that meant I was wearing some armor that wasn't necessarily what I would consider the prettiest armor set. I posted a picture of this in our Slack chat. It's the second link.
Yeah, that's a pretty unappealing armor, for sure.
Yep. So it was the Katarina armor with a red skirt. And it was functional, but not very attractive to play. And then I managed to kill a character that let me wear heavier armor by increasing the amount I could wear, and dropped his and I got his armor on, and it looks really cool now. I kind of look like a heavily armored Inquisitor, I think. And I'm really enjoying rocking this look. And it just reminded me how much I enjoy dressing up my digital characters and how much that adds to my enjoyment of a game.
Oh, absolutely. Like I will pay real money for cosmetic items if for no reason other than to make myself not look dumb for several levels.
I have paid good money for cosmetic items to turn a game that I don't want to play at all into a game that I actually love playing. I've done this a lot. I can go down a list. Lord of the Rings Online.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings Online is infinitely better if you just buy some cool armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. The low-level armor in particular looks really dumb.
I can run around like a bad stage production of Robin Hood, or I can look awesome.
The hats in particular, Lord of the Rings low-level hats are
actually
absurd.
I remember being sad about the hats in that game.
Well, and the boots bugged me too. I don't know what it was about the boots, but they just bothered me.
Most of the other slots, there are at least crafted items that look okay for them. At low levels, the hats all look stupid.
I know I spent a lot of time trying to get cosmetic gear in EverQuest 2 because like some of the earliest stuff in that game is horrible looking. But then if you equip a nice cosmetic set, you forget that it looks like horrible everything.
Well, in games that have really good cosmetic systems, also, like, I generally like most of the armor I found while leveling up in Wildstar. There were a few kind of stinky things, but nothing too egregious. But I will still happily spend hours messing with the cosmetic system until I find something that makes me feel extra awesome.
Yeah.
And it feels like time well spent.
Yeah, with a lot of games, I wish it was trying to figure out what type of cosmetic systems work well. Part of the reason I did not enjoy... I got back into WoW playing as my rogue, and I was really enjoying it because I was like all decked out in Bloodfang. And then I got another piece of armor, and it's like, oh, I have to go retransmog all of this.
Yeah.
I wish I could just...
painful.
I wish I could just have, this is what my look is. I don't change it as I'm leveling. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Some games have that, and it's really nice.
Yeah, like
that's how Lotros works.
That's how
too.
Lotro
and Rift.
Yep. EverQuest 2, Secret World.
Basically, every second stringer MMO except Final Fantasy does it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's probably the easiest way to do it because it's basically just a second set of inventory slots that only get used for, the graphics.
And then Wildstar
store the status of every single item, whether or not what you've actually made it look like.
Yeah,
Wildstar and Rift go like a step above a lot of them, and they have their dye system mixed in so that you can just color any slot anything you want, and I love that. To where you basically just have a paint pot that you say, okay, well this slot is now going to be black for the primary color, or this is going to be green for the secondary color. And you don't have to worry about going back and getting dyes or anything like that. You just color the items as you want.
And knowing that WoW has like a new transmog system coming with their new expansion, and that it's still going to involve like, oh, if I want the red variant of that armor, I still have to go back and farm that whole set up.
Yes.
Because even though I already have the green set, like, it's not the same thing, and I have to go get them both separately. Like, no, it makes me really frustrated.
Well, and the thing that broke me was that you wouldn't have access to drops from your other characters. Or at least some of the raid drops wouldn't be accessible to your other characters.
Depending on what class they are.
Yep.
Yeah, it's feels pretty silly. After playing a lot of other MMOs that have these really flexible cosmetic systems, like the fact that WoW is sort of still like the main MMO that everyone is still out to, try to reach, and they have this really terrible kludgy system. It feels awful and old.
Well, and honestly, a lot of the systems that they end up implementing and that are basically taken from other games aren't nearly as good as the game they copied it from. I tell you, the cosmetic system that I wish I liked was ESO, but it just doesn't end up doing all the things I wanted it to do. Because now basically you have costumes that take over the entire appearance of an item, and you're basically stuck with what that costume looks like. And there's some cool stuff about it, but yeah, I largely just wish I could mix and match the items as I wanted them. And you can absolutely control the appearance, but again, like, I kind of want to just be able to set the look of my weapon at all times without having to worry about which actual variant I'm equipping. Because nothing makes me sadder than, I really like using Dunmer swords. And if I end up with a much better axe, I kind of hate that I end up using it because it means I have to give up my Dunmer sword.
I haven't played that game long enough to know if the solution of craft nearly everything I want is still viable.
Oh, it is. I like to kill a lot of things, and sometimes I get cooler stuff out in the world that I either don't have the resources to craft or either don't want to afford to craft if I've already got a functional version of it sitting in the bank. I'm sure once I actually hit whatever passes as the current level cap, I will get mostly a crafted set, but now that I'm leveling through and getting, veteran ranks pretty frequently, I just go with a lot of what I happen to find out in the world. But that's the weird thing about cosmetic systems is it can literally take a game that you hate to play to one that you're actually really enjoying, because now you can get past whatever element was bothering you.
I tell you what, I wasn't going to play Wildstar, and then that one event where I could get the really cool trench coat and hoverboard happened, and I was like, okay, I can get into this game. If nothing else, I'll look awesome.
Yeah, that Outlaw set made a lot of, those levels more tolerable. But anyway, I think that's kind of the list of topics we wanted to talk about. Anybody else have anything else they want to discuss before we close things down?
Bravely Second did come out yesterday in the States.
Ooh! Where? I want to see animations for quad wielding. I know that game doesn't have them because of the kind of game it is, but...
It probably doesn't have them.
Quad wielding?
Yes, you got a sword in each hand.
There's a charioteer class that can equip a sword in each hand, a sword in the head slot, and a weapon in the body slot.
What?
So you got like a dagger in each hand, another dagger in your teeth, and then like, I don't know, a codpiece dagger or something.
I thought the guy from One Piece was Madness.
It's Roronoa Zoro Plus.
Asterisk wielder for that, like the person you get that class from, the centaur.
Okay, that makes sense.
I am really curious what's going on, because like it's the same characters as Bravely Default.
2 of them.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, is it Adia and
Tiz.
And what's his name?
The main character. Tiz is in your party again.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, one of the characters is the one I liked.
Ring a Bell is not going to rejoin your party.
That's too bad. Ring a Bell was hilarious. And the most interesting character of that game.
Ring a Bell alternated between annoying me and making me just like belly laugh.
Yes, when the story actually kicks in, he is the most interesting character in that game.
He is, yes. Also, the
P.S. It takes way too long for that to happen.
It does. It absolutely does. The statutes of limitations are up on this game, and my joke that I always kept using over and over and over was Bravely Default is Final Fantasy without the FF, which, if you remove the FF from the title, kind of is spoilery because it's Aerie lies. And the entire game is about Aerie tricking you to basically destroying worlds.
In the bad ending route, that is actually the name of the last chapter, is actually lying Aerie.
And I was going down the true ending, and I got to the last boss, and I said, nope, I'm out. I watched a YouTube video of somebody who was higher level than me attempting that fight, and they spent like 3 hours of attempts, just grinding their face, hoping that they would get not killed by RNG, which is absolutely a thing that, like, no recourse, you're dead.
Given that game has all sorts of broken setups, I find it hard to believe no recourse. That game has really, really broken things in it.
It has really broken things in it, and the boss can do that's the thing is, whereas with Final Fantasy V, which is very clearly what the game's job system is based off of, you can do broken.
FF5 isn't self-aware of how broken it is.
Yeah. Bravely Default is 100% aware of how broken it is.
The remake is absolutely aware of how broken it is.
Well, sure.
But they stuck all that stuff in a bonus dungeon.
Yeah.
But, like, Bravely Default is aware of how broken it is and tunes its bosses around that. Like, the only way I killed Aerie was because what Aerie will do to you is, and this was a source of constant kills for me, was she would routinely give everyone in the party weakness to fire and then mega flare them. And the only way to prevent that was to have the spirit guide thing that makes everyone immune to magic damage. That's the only way I figured out to survive it. But that meant that you had to time that perfectly. And that meant you could never let... you had to be hasted, and you could never let your haste drop. That game's combat was incredibly frustrating at the end. And if I played it again, I would not want to do the hard end. Even though I'm told that's like the true ending of the game.
It's like Kingdom Hearts. Nobody actually gets the true ending of Kingdom Hearts.
That's not true. Well, which one?
Jiminy Cricket is a dick. Like, just throw that out there. Kingdom Hearts.
So, yes, I agree. But if you play the game on hard, you don't have to do Jiminy Cricket's nonsense. That is your punishment for playing on it normal, of all things.
Fair.
I was going to say, it's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure I got the true ending.
In the first game, it's doable. In the second game, you have to do Jiminy Cricket's nonsense if you're playing on normal, and you probably won't. Or, like I said, you could finish it on hard mode, which is way easier than doing his entire journal.
So I ended up picking up, because I found them on closeout, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and Kingdom Hearts 2.5. Is that basically 1 and 2?
Nope.
No?
Yes, sort of.
Really?
Sort of.
Yes. 1.5 is 1 and the game that is actually between 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's like 3 games in each of those sets.
Oh,
yeah, there's 2 games in a movie in each one.
Okay.
Okay.
So 1.5 is
these?
1 and they're available physically only for PS3 because Disney is, yes.
Yeah. I picked them up on Amazon.
I won't be playing them.
Yeah, like I picked them up on closeout in physical PS3 copy.
1.5 is 1 and Chain of Memories, which is between 1 and 2. 2.5 is 2 and Birth by Sleep, which is, before all of the others.
Yeah. 1.5 also has the 358
Shouldn't
days, I believe.
That's a weird title.
It's a movie only, and it's kind of stupid.
Oh, okay.
So
Kingdom Hearts games,
and in both cases, it's the final mix. So it's the
version that didn't come out here.
Yeah.
Okay, but like playing through those games would be the relative equivalent of 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
That's all I care
They
about.
They contain 1 and 2 and some other stuff.
Because mostly I just don't want to downgrade and actually play a PS2 game again. And the weird thing about it is it's not the graphics that bother me, it's the 4.3 aspect ratio instead of the 16:9. And I guess I've just gotten so used to looking at quote-unquote widescreen games. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap things up, I guess. Next week is our Gone Home show, yes?
2 more weeks.
2 more weeks? God, this is a long month.
Long month.
Yep.
Next week should totally be, are there more good Star Wars games?
Yes.
2 Star Wars movies by ratio.
That would be an interesting thing. It's going to require some research, though.
It will.
Yeah, we'll have to do our homework.
If we wanted to get really complicated, we could also try and figure the ratio for books. I'm going to guess the
Oh,
ratio
no,
for
no,
books
no,
would be
no.
the worst of the bunch.
Yeah, no, like...
There are a lot of bad Star Wars books.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad Star Wars books. it was probably a good thing that the expanded universe was jettisoned, just because there's a lot of bad Star Wars books. Anyway, so we may do the Star Wars show next week. Hopefully you enjoyed our rambling mess of a show today. And hopefully you will join us again next week, where we're going to talk about something. I don't know what yet. Anyway, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.